They're trying to put me out.
We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone for our first meeting here.
Happy New Year.
Woo! Hey everybody. Everyone here. Let's open in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the new year and the opportunities ahead. Pray that this would be a blessed year and we find strength for the new tasks that await us. We don't always know what is around the corner. Lord, that you for us and Lord, you can help us to deal with wisdom with the things that will arise in this new year. Pray, Father, you continue to give divine blessing and covering protection over this township, all matters and functions of it, those that serve us and those that at all hours of the day and night call for our safety. We also think of the search we're undergoing. Pray for the right person to step into our role here, Superintendent, guide us. Bless now this meeting, conversation among us, debate, Lord, and at times even disagree, but do it, I pray, in the right spirit.
Amen. Amen.
I proceed to the next one. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is that on? Okay. Something red yet.
Here we go.
Apologize. Well, I'll say it again. Happy New Year. And here we go. So, I guess we would acknowledge for the record that all are present this evening. It's good. And item number 5, the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Support. Okay. Any comments? I know we all received an email today about a potential addition. I'm willing to put that motion before the board and have a debate about that. Did you all receive the email about rezoning? I know we had a lot going on, I'm sure each of us today. So I will move to consider the amendment of the agenda to add this potential zoning change.
I'll support that.
Okay, so now it's a matter before the board for discussion. I know that it originated out of the meeting this past Wednesday of the Planning Commission, correct?
Yes.
And been published for this evening for the agenda, but yet was not on the agenda because the agenda had been published already on Monday of this past week. So, Gary, any comments about that from the Planning Commission's perspective and even as a board member?
There wasn't a lot of discussion about it. It was pretty simple and straightforward, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a procedure question? Are we discussing that right now, or are we going to add it to our agenda to discuss?
The motion was to add it to the agenda.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Gary, you know, didn't marinate in it. Frankly, only read it here late this afternoon. Asked Rod a little bit about it this evening. Haven't had a lot of time to give it much thought, but it did seem like a rather minor matter, albeit I think to one individual it wasn't so minor. But
yeah.
I think that may be a lone voice or close to it. Anyone thoughts, input that you wish to give those? Either to my left here, Rod, or anything further to add for consideration? We've read the staff report. Michael, I know you wanted to comment on it. Okay, the floor is yours.
I would just say I read through the staff report in the minutes. The Planning Commission didn't look like there was a whole lot with it. I don't have an issue with actual rezoning itself. I have an issue when stuff gets added, last minute emails, usually Monday, 3 hours before the meeting, 4 hours before the meeting. And this is something that could have been sent out last week. So I don't have a problem with the item. I just have a problem with last minute communication.
Okay. So as Becky clarified a moment ago, this is, to place it on the agenda and not to make a vote on it necessarily right now.
14D?
If there's general consensus then, to do that?
Yes, yeah.
All right, all in favor of the amendment to the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right. So it will be added, I was thinking 13A, if that's all right. I know we have a 14, but I think 14 may involve more discussion, and perhaps, Todd, are you here tonight on that particular issue? No? All right.
No.
Didn't want to delay anybody, but it's all right, we'll just make it 13A?
Yeah.
Okay. Objections? All right. So back to then the original motion to approve the agenda now with that amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. The agenda as amended is approved. Item 6 is your communications, letters, and reports that have been received for information. Item 7, public comment now for items remaining on the agenda. Is there anyone here tonight from the public who wishes to step forward and address the board on items that are on tonight's agenda? As always, remind you there will also be an opportunity at the end to speak once again to anything you wish. Yes, ma'am. Forward.
For Georgetown Township, and since becoming one, I've just been trying to get more involved with local stuff. I've been pretty tied up with school board meetings, but you guys get me tonight. Yay! I was looking at the agenda, as I tend to try and do, to see if there's anything of interest that I'd like to comment on. And I was all excited that you guys are potentially planning a survey. I was talking about item number 14. And it was bringing, I don't know what you guys were considering to have on the survey, but from speaking with the members of my community, what their concerns are, I just wanted to convey to you what I think should be included. I'd love there to be included on the community voicing how they feel about issues with the library, with specifically content that may be getting added in reference to children's books. My personal experience with the Jenison Library has been very positive, but I have been alarmed by seeing what has already entered into other public libraries that I would never allow my 7-year-old son or my 9-year-old daughter to see, because the content is mature, and as a parent I would like it to be my choice when they're exposed to it. So I'm not here to debate what kind of content is acceptable or unacceptable. What I'm seeing is it's a very hot button topic in the community, and before the board takes any further action with keeping things out or accepting things in, it'd be very wise to get the pulse of the community and your voter base before moving forward, because I don't want these decisions to be made off of who's the loudest, because often I'm sure you'll get people coming in like me that are raising the red flags on certain issues. But with this being our community library, I would really love to see all the voters giving their input rather than making a choice and having to backtrack off of it later. I'd be curious to hear what the community really feels about liquor licensing. I know that those proposals have been voted down. From the people I've been speaking with, they are kind of for it. I myself would like to see that happen. But again, I'd like to know what the community thinks. Inflation is also something people are very concerned about. Now, with how the Georgetown Township Board has handled money, I've been very impressed that you seem to have more than enough and you are not overspending. I would love to see something considered putting on that survey about if there are extra funds that aren't needed by the township, would you consider offering a tax break or even a refund to the community to help us offset the extreme inflation that we're experiencing across the board on food, on gas, generally on utilities? I was looking into the inflation rates across the country, and it was estimated with the article that I was reading that it impacts each American by roughly $3,500 a year. That's pretty significant. So if the board was able to maybe give a little bit back, I think that would go a long way with your voter base.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, appreciate that. Anyone else for this first public comment period? Yes. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name's Donna Mooney. I'm at 2113 Sandstone Drive. I just kind of wanted to reiterate a little bit of what Rachel said as well. A couple things that I really wanted to point out is as far as the surplus in the funds. Well done, kudos. I used to be a bankruptcy paralegal, and it took me to write budgets for other people to really figure out what it meant to save and what it meant to budget. So when I see other people doing a really great job, I just like to say kudos. And again, more of what Rachel said, so many in our community are experiencing hardships because of the inflation and different things that are going on. So I think that would also be a good question to put on the survey. I think surveys are really a great way to find out what people really, really want. And I think that would be a good way to find out if there's our community has certain needs where that money might be able to help offset some of those inflation costs. As far as the library goes, it's a really, really tough decision, I know, for some people, but I feel like there's so much sexualization in our community these days, and I really hope that we can try to keep it away from our youngest people and let them mature into healthy adults and, let their families, I know in our family, let each family teach their children. So that's really all I'm going to say about that. But I really just wanted to say kudos about, the surplus on the funds. Keep doing a great job on that, and a survey would be much welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the first public comment period, and we'll go on to item number 8 on our agenda this evening, the approval of the bills, and among other things on our consent agenda, approval of minutes, approval of a layout of preliminary plat that I think you may be here on, right, Todd? Is there a motion to approve item 8, our consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, discussion among the board. All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is passed. Item 9, ordinance amendment to Chapter 20. Is there a motion as it relates to this proposed ordinance amendment by the Planning Commission concerning the size of a location for a school within the community? One way or the other.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. We're going to have to call Rich and Carol there for a second. that was kind of their role in the last word.
Sorry, I slacked for a minute.
No, it's okay. It's all right. All right, it's interesting. I read through all of that. I'd like to know what the board feels about this. I found it quite interesting to compare to other communities and even just to see the list of our current schools and the size of the space that they each occupy. Thoughts about that? Gary, Planning Commission member, any thoughts?
Just that Victor did a lot of work to compare all the other communities, and we just tried to line everything up with what they're doing. And this came up because we had other schools that have tried to do things in the community, and they were limited by size. And the Planning Commission also felt that it kind of hamstrung the private schools, because the public schools can do whatever they want without even coming for zoning. And the private schools had to come for zoning, and they had to hold up to a set of rules that the public schools don't have to. So I think it was a good compromise as far as comparing it to other communities and then lining ours up with what the other communities are doing too.
Anyone else? No? All right. I thought this would be one that was a little more animated, but no, we're glad to move ahead then. It's a motion that would require, I think, a roll call vote. If you're ready to vote, yeah.
This in response to, was that the one right at Old Solomon's Porch?
Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
Yep. And after we did all that, they outgrew the building and ended up moving to the old homeschool building on Birmingham.
Oh,
They never even used their building for a school before it happened. Somebody in the homeschool building that was renting it fell out of their lease, and they contacted this school that they're starting and said, you want to use our building, like a week before they needed it. So providentially, it all worked out. So, but it was a good discussion to get started because there's other things that have come along. So, yeah.
even with the change, it would exceed most of the municipalities around us in terms of size, but not by much. All right. And hearing no further comments, look to you, clerk, to call the roll.
Mrs. Montai?
Yes.
Mr. Belling?
Yes.
Treasurer?
Yes.
Supervisor?
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Schwam?
Yes.
All right. Passed unanimously. Moves us then to item 10, 2022 resolution to establish polling locations. You know, I know tonight I have talked to Dan, and he'd like to show us a couple of slides. We were thinking maybe toward the end during board discussion we could still do that. I don't know if one of the slides would be helpful on this point on the agenda. If not, we'll just wait until the end. You've got the new congressional districts and...
I can show you that. Like, this is something is more of just housekeeping. The board is responsible to approve the locations. We're realizing as the checklist of all the things we have to do coming up with our elections this year, this is a step that needs to take place because one location moved, obviously because we couldn't get into Waterford anymore. And so we want a formal approval of all the items. If you want to approve that, I can show you the other slides too, but they're kind of not related.
Not related? Okay. Then we'll wait till the end for the slides. All right. Well, is there a motion that we can place in the floor to approve the polling?
I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
To establish polling place for recommended by the Finance Committee.
Okay. Second.
Support.
Any comments among the board? Like Dan said, pretty straightforward step that has to be taken. Hearing none, this also is a roll call vote.
Mr. Schwam?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Supervisor?
Yes.
Treasurer?
Yes.
Mr. Belling?
Yes.
Mrs. Montai?
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. Item 11, pave the shoulders of 14th Avenue is the title there. Is there a motion to approve of the installation of an additional 3 feet of paved shoulder to both sides of 14th?
So move. Support.
Moved and supported. Any thoughts about that? My folks lived on that road right in that section close to that section for years, right across from where Pontstein Drive is. Very familiar.
I just want to make sure you point out is this is scheduled to be done with the resurfacing in 2024, so it's 2 years away. I just want to make sure
Right.
Yeah.
that was very clear.
Not imminent, yeah.
Yes.
And done at the same time, so I'm sure more efficient.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll just say it seems a useful dollars. Any thoughts?
Jim, it's 55 miles an hour through there, and it would be nice to have paths, but the practicality, the cost involved would be very, very high because the land just drops right off. So by adding to each side, it'll give people a place to walk, and it will connect with Georgetown Shores and ultimately connect with the path that comes from Jamestown. So it would be a nice extension. I wish it was a path, but this is a practical way to do it for now. Maybe in the future, but putting a path in would be incredibly expensive.
The path in Jamestown, explain. Is it where it connects with 8th and there's a shoulder there as well, or apron all the way up to where, to Jackson, or what do you?
8th, by Georgetown Shores.
Yeah.
By the Quarry Ponds there, lakes. If you go down Van Buren.
Okay.
There's sidewalks and then the path by Georgetown Shores. You make that very hard curve, and then it dead ends. Having a wider shoulder would allow people that are on bikes or walking some safety there. I'd love to see a path, but that would be a lot of money.
Most of Georgetown Shores. Not all Georgetown Shores have sidewalks.
That is correct.
Okay, just so we're clear.
I'm going to make that proposal. I'll
Just make it clear. That's been tried before.
16th Avenue.
Just making it clear.
Here we go. One lawsuit's enough.
Yeah, I like it. That doesn't eliminate the potential down the road that there could be a path. You never know. You never know. Any other thoughts about it? Issues with it? No? Okay. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item 11 is passed. Item 12, senior transportation public notice. Is there a motion placed before the board? Anyone wish to make that motion to authorize publication of the senior transportation public notice?
So moved.
And support.
All right. It would be, as you probably read, it would be state money. It would be money other than out of our coffers. Place 2 vehicles, is it, Michael? Is that right?
1 in
Place 2,
22,
was it?
1 in 23.
Yeah. Thoughts about that?
Is the senior transportation back to the levels it was before COVID, or is it still down quite a bit? Is it?
Do you have like a count or an uptick of trips that you'd be able to share?
Our ridership.
Okay. 13. Oh, okay.
What's the year-to-date fares? Yeah, so far. Last year, 2021.
Last year.
Last year, fares were $33,746.60. Got a sheet that lays it all out, if that would be helpful for you.
The only question I had around the state funding is, obviously it's coming from the state, and is it already coded as has to be a vehicle, or do they just give us, a dollar figure in which there's multiple things it could go to?
No, these are for vehicles.
Specific to vehicles.
Specifically minivans.
Okay.
The allotment is up to $57,000 per vehicle for these 2 years. We don't typically spend that much, and we're reimbursed based on what we spend.
Okay.
So we buy the vehicle, we get the vehicle ready for transportation purposes, and we can get reimbursed on all of that.
Got it. Thank you.
How's it been going to find drivers? We have to get our own drivers?
Yeah. That's been a struggle.
Yeah.
Had an ongoing search for the past about a year. We've been able to fill in with several people that are willing to work 1 or 2 days a week.
Okay.
I'd like to find one person that's a little bit more regular. We want to do like 3 days a week.
Unfortunately, that's the question you have to ask every time you want to add something in a program or anything, is finding the help to do it.
Well, this is the authorization then of a public notice. Further discussion about that? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? It is passed. Item 13, fire department sign request. Anyone wish to make a motion for the board subject to new signs?
I'll make the motion to approve the low bid.
Support.
All right.
This is an issue we talked about with the chief maybe 6 to 12 months ago. I don't recall that it was in the recent past. And that's come back before us now with specific bids. And I think originally when we talked to you, Chief, I think there maybe were 3 locations, and now we're looking at 2, right? Yeah. The 2 more high traffic, I guess you'd say. So it's before the board. Questions, comments, concerns?
Were we able to get a breakdown of just what individually they were going to be?
Yeah, one sign would be $16,273.81. Difference of $3,476.50. Part of that has an inflationary measure in it.
Okay.
It's going to stick with his original quote for the 2. If it goes to just 1, you've got some price increases. Big differences. Broke it out. 1 and then a second for shipping.
I had a question around the budget part of it, if you don't mind, Chief. So I think it said in the letter that we had it in the budget. Are you thinking that this would come out of the capital outlay, the cost for this? Okay. Can you share with me a little bit, and I'm sorry if I missed on some of this conversation, the background of the need for the sign? Are you hearing, from the constituents that, they're really wanting to see, fire safety messages and things like that? Do you have that kind of part of your plan on how you want to spend your 205 that you have in your capital overlay or outlay? Sorry, I'm not I just missed you. I wanted you to come up.
I was going to say that, but it sounds weird.
Not yours. Okay, so question 1 is capital outlay is where it's going to come from. And if you don't mind giving me a little bit of a backstory of why you're hoping to get these signs based on, whatever you're hearing from the community or yourself, like some strategy that you might have for them. And then part B is you have $205,000 in your capital outlay. That's there's a lot we could do with that. How are you envisioning, if signs is part of it, how are you envisioning the rest of it going?
Okay. First off, the signs hopefully will come out of last year because that's where it was budgeted in. This 2022 has different expenditures in it. The signs in question here are at Station 1 on 36, and the second one is on 44th Street. They currently have signs out front by the road. And these are the plastic signs that you have to go into the station, sort through what you want to say, go out there and put them up. Well, these signs are 20 years old, and either A, we upgrade them, or B, we have to upgrade them as they currently are. Do I have any quotes on that? No, I don't. But as far as the public, no, we haven't received any information from the public that they'd want these signs to be LED or anything. It's just we're at the point now, what do we do? And the logic to me would be to upgrade it the same style as the sign out front.
Okay. And what do you put on the signs?
Oh, this time of the year, please dig out your fire hydrants.
Oh.
Fire prevention, and these even can be related township-wide. Voting, you've got information on voting or anything involving the township, we can put it on there.
Okay.
So whatever we're projecting out here, you could repeat on those signs as well.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And sorry, you had said it's last year's budget, so is that not coming from 200, that's not coming from the capital outlay, or is that baked in? Capital outlay. Okay.
They may have to do an amendment they can bring forward last year's, but that will be a separate motion.
Okay.
Unilaterally can't go retroactive.
Okay, so if we spend the 25 on the signs, is that going to dip into some other function and hope or strategy that you have on how you want to spend this capital outlay?
Out of 21,
Out of 22. So what,
there's other, the bigger ticket item out of that is an example, which I'll come back here in another month or so, is battery operated extrication tools. And that's gonna be just under 100,000. So that'd take a good piece of that. I think there are some defibrillators in there, but that should eat a good chunk of it.
okay. Thank you.
Chief, those are both high traffic areas, and if we're able to communicate with an electronic sign like that, it can be very positive. And I do hear positive things about your signs. The people that set them up often are very creative with what they say.
Gee, what do you put on them?
Pardon?
What kind of messages do you put on them?
On the signs?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, fire prevention, hydrants, we can put anything on there you want.
Sometimes they're humorous.
Happy birthday, John, or what?
Well, sometimes they're humorous.
Have you hugged Smokey the Bear lately? That kind of thing.
Only you can do that. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks. Other comments?
My thoughts on this are, depending on where you live in the community and depending on what your commute to work looks like, there are people who never drive past our sign here.
Right.
And our sign here is a primary resource for saying things like farmers market, Mondays, that kind of thing. And so my excitement about this sign is that it puts kind of advertising flexibility on 36th and on 44th, which are pretty far from here, to hopefully get any messages that the township wanted to get in front of people's eyes that we would put on the sign out front, to have it as part of those other locations. You're going to hit people that we have been otherwise missing, especially that are not on social media. So that was my excitement about it, is just the ease of messaging and hitting different traffic flows than what we currently have.
Who manages the signs? Like, is there like one command center that would then hook into all the signs with the same message on all of them? Or the individual,
it's
would have to do his and
individually controlled. We would have to send out messages, and they'll have someone at the stations who will coordinate the stations, and then we'll send the messages out to them too. We have some questions about how the software will work till we actually get it, whether it'll be compatible with ours or whether we can send it out at once or send it in one place.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none? The vote? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay.
Anyone opposed? All right, it's passed. All right, we added item 13A earlier, and we'll turn to that now, having to do with this potential rezoning. Does the board member wish to place before the board approval of this rezoning for 2739 Port Sheldon Street?
I'll make that motion.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Again, we've established that we received this today, and I trust that everyone seemed to nod when I asked if you'd had a chance to at least look through it. Gary, you made a few comments earlier on it. Anyone else wish to address either support or concern as it relates to this rezoning? All right. Hearing none. All in favor? Well, this is actually it's going to have to be a roll call vote.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Treasurer?
Yes.
Ms. Schwam?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Belling?
Yes.
Ms. Montauk?
Yes.
All right. Passed. We'll move then to item 14, July 2022 constituent survey themes and objectives. And I'm not quite sure where it originated out of, but okay, it was from Kristen?
Yeah, thanks,
I'm going to let Kristen take the floor then.
Kirsten. Sorry.
Kirsten.
Get it all the time. So, yeah, thanks, Jim, and I spent quite a bit of time thinking about this particular topic, and I had asked to add it to our general discussion in hopes to gain the general board's wisdom on a proposal that I'm making as it relates to constituent feedback and engagement. I am tickled to see some people come tonight in relation to this agenda item. A little bit of background to start. The concept of surveying started out of the Services Committee, and it was specific to the 2021 goal as it related to parks, hopes, and visions for township parks. And I believe the intent of that survey was to capture the constituents' wants for new parks. If applicable, the Parks Department would receive more funding out of the general fund to spend on that new park. So fast forward to today, I would like to propose that we actually broaden this survey's themes to a total township function and utilize the July tax bill and letter as a primary mode of communication. So bear with me. I have developed the why, and you know me, I like to make points. So I've developed 4 points that I want to share with you guys. I've thought a lot about this. And these 4 points, frankly, I see a lot of unity between all of us on. And they are, point number 1, inclusionary. So gaining feedback on a broader scope of issues broadens our constituent base and engagement. Since I've joined this board in August, I've observed patterns in themes that our constituents have either spoken or written to us about. I would consider these themes as table stakes for the board to address. Some of them were spoken here tonight. Others I'd add to those. Farmers market. We already talked about library policy content, those liquor licensing. The township maintenance and roads and parks. Those freedom of choice resolutions. It's imperative that we gain a broader perspective from our constituents as we consider future votes and proposals on these themes. Point number 2. You know I like this word, empathy. Empathy and building trust. So the years 2020 and 21 are a lot different than the 22 outlook. By pivoting and gaining broader concerns of our constituents and people will build trust, and this is key for us. Our people, including us, and we've heard it actually tonight as well, are experiencing some tremendous rates of inflation, including those items that are essentials like gas, utilities, milk, eggs. Although we as board members can't control the inflation, we can control the other elements that are affecting the household in our township by our tax rates or what we spend, or perhaps this year what we not spend on as it relates to non-essentials. Point number 3, it's a pilot tool. This one might be my favorite, for ongoing engagement in our community. In a recent publication regarding an article titled Finding Unity in the Age of COVID, Commissioner of the 9th District, Phil Coyer, shared and confirmed that part of Ottawa County's strategy is to engage its public twice a year via a newsletter and a communication. I paraphrase him by saying, to give residents direct and clear information on what their county government does on a daily basis. So what does that mean for us here in Georgetown? We can gauge the responses of this July survey, and if we yield great response and engagement and feedback, we can build this out as an ongoing strategy. All of this under a very similar lens or umbrella that is engagement, trust, unity, and partnership with similar to what our Ottawa County officials are doing at the higher level to our constituents. And 4, the final. Goal setting, partnering with the people. So themes that show statistical significance from the survey should be considered as board goals for the next 2 years. All of you will be in these seats until 24. There are 2 years of strategic goal setting and voting to be done. And to have the most recent gauge of your community will be key to success. This goes for whoever lands this seat that I presently hold in this November election. So now what? I'd like to make a motion that the board supports a July general community survey with broader themes and qualitative questions, utilizing the July tax bill as the primary mode of communication and awareness.
Kirsten, we were discussing this in the service committee, and I thought there was general consensus. And from what you've just said, I thought we were all on the same page and we were developing what the questions might be and then presenting it to the board. I'm not sure why you're doing this now, because we're going through the process as a group. I believe all of us agreed. We haven't got to that point yet. It's like you're cutting the legs out from under us, bringing it directly to the board around us. There was no opposition to my knowledge.
Jim, it was my understanding that the themes of which that would come out of the Services Committee survey were centered around services behaviors, and I'm requesting that we get the broader board's wisdom and bring in multiple functions of the board beyond services and parks and rec.
I think it's more appropriate to discuss it with us first before you canceled us and went directly to the board. I don't think this is appropriate.
Well, there's been a motion that's been made. It's not been seconded.
I seconded it.
Did you? Okay. Did you catch that? Second? Okay.
So repeat the motion to me then. Just there's a lot, you wrote a lot there, so I need to go back to what the motion is.
I've been really thinking about it, Gary.
I know you have. I get it.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal to get the broader constituents and our whole team in on this. So the motion is that the board supports a July general survey with broader themes that each of us on the board can support and maybe submit instead of just services committee, right? With a potential qualitative questions, we can figure this out together before the next. I'm making this really hard as a motion. I would like to make a motion that the board supports a July general community survey with broader themes, qualitative questions, and utilizing that July tax bill as a primary mode of communication and awareness. That's my motion.
I guess I don't see how it's cutting your legs out, because the way I kind of take this as is she saw that it was a good idea. She expanded it out to the entire board. Maybe utilities can put some questions in there. Maybe finance can put some questions in there. Maybe services, you guys put your questions in there. I think it's actually smart because it expands it out to not just Parks and Rec, but it's the entire board as a whole. I actually like the idea.
This is January 10.
Yep.
We're looking at July.
Yep.
We're going through the process, and then we jump immediately to the board. I don't understand why. If there was opposition, possibly. And then this wasn't on the agenda. It was just added.
On the agenda.
A week ago.
Number 14.
Just to clarify even further, the time-sensitive nature of this, too, is that I wanted to make sure that knowing a lot of times we get things put at us right at the last minute, right? And it's like, okay, do we have enough time to think about it, right? We know that we owed the team the questions by 124. It was imperative that I had brought it up to this meeting to get the broader board's wisdom and potential questions to add so that we can still make that 124 survey question date, because, you know, we can still, John, ask about the parks. But you get 10 questions you can work with to make a really good survey. Let's add parks. Let's add library. Let's add road and commissions or finance or whatever it is that each function and each person thinks that we need to add to this. That's the opportunity. It's a win-win, your favorite sentence.
I think, though, that, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the January 24th Services Committee meeting was an arbitrary date. It's not some hard deadline that we have to have something done by. And so I'm with John in feeling like this started as a survey not to add another park, but to as part of revisiting our parks master plan. That's where this started. And so for the three of us at Services to have set a date for us to bring ideas to a discussion, because what had happened is the last time it was on our agenda, there had been a lot of uncertainty as far as what we were supposed to bring. And we all were kind of coming from different perspectives. And so we clarified that at our last Services Committee meeting and then set a goal of, by our next Services Committee meeting in January, coming together, the three of us,
with questions. And so I think that collegial respect would have been, when you brought your questions to services, that you would have brought these 4 points, and you would have brought maybe questions from a variety of areas that you think. And John and I would have brought ours, and we could have had this discussion there first before it came before the full board, because John and I might have had input on your 4 points. I would have at least loved to have had your 4 points and the opportunity to read and chew on and digest them prior to this meeting. I think that it kind of comes down to collegial respect, the feeling like the rug was just pulled out from underneath us. It seems like we decided before you were on the board to work on a survey, which I know you're an expert on surveys, but it seems like before you were on the board, Services Committee made a decision to move in the direction of a survey as part of revisiting our Parks Master Plan. And that was a vehicle that was Hudson down the road, because we only meet once a month, and it feels like it just got completely derailed and changed into something else. I'm not saying that the something else is bad, but I'm saying that it is hurtful that you just took the project that the 3 of us were working on and commandeered it and brought it here without so much as giving us the respect of a heads up, or waiting for our services meeting later this month to say, hey guys, I would really like to bring this to the first board meeting in February. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan or Rod, but the January 24 date that we set was the next time that we knew we were going to be together. It isn't some deadline for publication. So I'm not against derailing the train. I'm not against taking what was already in motion and rerouting it. But I think the way that just went down was unkind and not collegial.
The primary difference that I'm hearing between the survey discussion that began is more narrowly focused on parks that's being expanded maybe to the township generally. Is that the concern?
We had talked about an inexpensive way that we'd be able to contact without spending a great deal of money. So it was decided that we would use the mailings to go out for the taxes. We didn't want to have it too long. What are 10 questions we could come up with that would be meaningful for the community and could guide us?
Again, focused on parks or general?
Or it could be general.
Focused on, it started with revisiting our Parks Master Plan. Was kind of, it was rewritten, but neither John nor I had spoken against it becoming more general when that was brought up in our Services Committee meeting. We were both comfortable with that.
So the manner and the method and so on, you're objecting to the content of the idea of expanding the survey to cover a broader range of topics outside of just parks. Do I hear there being a consensus about that, or is
would not be against that? But normally what you'd do is you'd go through the service committee, you'd discuss this in detail. That way you're guaranteed 3 votes. All you gotta do is pick up 1 more vote. But if you cancel out our discussion and say, no, I want to take this to the general board and make a workshop out of it, this is just a normal meeting. We're talking January 10th, something that's going to be, there's no reason to do this right now.
Yeah, there is. You don't understand. You're in 6 months. Look at 6 months to have this ready. Meeting once a month. This is a good time to start.
So do we want to take our meeting right now and turn it into a workshop?
No, I don't. But I do think that the motion, first of all, I don't think the motion is hijacking services. It's just asking for further information from the board from other committees. That's all she's looking for. And I think at January 10, starting this right now for something right in July is being proactive. Having it done 2 months early is better than having it done a week late.
And I'd like it for the record that I did bring it up in services multiple times and it didn't get any legs. Not that it was the reason why I commandeered, because I don't agree with you that I commandeered it. And I hear what you say, Becky, and I'm sorry you feel hurt. I do.
I just don't understand why we walked away from services with a to-do list.
I'm hoping to scope this up, get a broader scope going, because we got little time on our hands, trust me. We start this 110, we get collection of of questions and constituent feedback and things like that, time is going to fly by. This is a big deal. In 22, the year 22 is incredibly different than the themes and goals that the team has set in 21, including the Parks Master Plan. We've got bigger fish to fry, bigger table stakes that we are steering, all of us, across the board. Some mentioned tonight. Many we've noted in our own pockets.
We're talking about a questionnaire on the back of a tax bill. This is not necessarily some high-pressured or high-financed type of survey.
Have you done a
survey before? It will be very basic. I've been trained in it, and yes, I do.
Okay.
But you have to ask the right
questions. This is my background. Can something like this be basically put together in hours?
We have to
the way we're approaching it.
This is our constituents' concerns. We cannot flip this around in a lickety-split. We got to first together figure out what themes we want to address in the 10 questions, how we want to do it, and then how do we want to do the bill? Is it like a paper for those folks who don't want to do a QR code? So we have a paper and a QR code. We have to figure out the execution and the assets to deploy the survey, and then further, we have to identify what secure system can it run through to ensure there's no fraud.
Why could this not have waited till the 24th and you discussed it with us?
It would have been too late. Because it would have been this board, we had the questions due in services on the 24th. I'm scoping up, Jim, or John, I'm getting a hope that we get a broader scope. We should all be excited about getting a broader scope of our constituents. This is a good thing. And no emotions, guys.
I disagree with your methodology that you do this to us.
Well,
I have a couple of examples.
So at this point, I think what I'm trying to grab some consensus, and that is, it is among the two sides or the two views, it seems that it's a good thing to, or at least a reasonable thing to expand the scope of the survey. I suppose what a takeaway could be for us tonight is we do have 3 different main committees. There's somewhat of a delegation of duty given to the other 2 committees to think about what they might want to include, not feeling the pressure to have a certain number of questions, but to perhaps among our respective committees come up with 2 to 4 potential questions or thereabouts to then submit. If we want to send it back to services and have services sort of be the collecting spot for the various potential questions, and then presenting to the board at a later date.
Jim, that's fine. It's the methodology and being blindsided like this.
Yeah.
That's why you have committees, is to put it together, get consensus, get 3 votes, and then you easily have things flow through.
Yeah.
But perhaps to reiterate what Becky was saying, I remember the 3 of us talking about a survey. Now we're in January. Maybe it was the fear of, unfortunately, the snail's pace. You meet once every month. That then all of a sudden July sneaks up quickly. So, perhaps that's the thing.
That's the thing.
What if to be, because the genie's a little bit out of the bottle in terms of how things got presented and the perspectives about that. What if we said by the time of your February meeting that each of the respective committees, our other 2 committees, would be charged with passing along to your committee potential questions from the viewpoint of our own subcommittees that you can then assimilate into maybe 2 or 3 different proposals. And then at your February meeting, apart from us, the 3 of you would say, let's assimilate these and come forward with a couple of recommended proposals to the board at a meeting like at the beginning of March or something, the first meeting in March. Is that a reasonable way of timelining?
When's the print of I know you guys had wrote out kind of like, we backtracked, and that's how we got to the 124 date. What's the print of the July bill?
We have to be camera ready or print ready by June 1st.
Okay.
So we've got 6 months.
June 1st, yes. So
5 months.
Yes.
Sorry.
Less than 5 months. So to stay to the inexpensive cost, you have 1 sheet of paper to work with.
Okay, so it would be like the bill, but...
Tri-folded.
So you'd have the bill, and then you'd have the 1 sheet of the 10 questions. So you'd have 2 pieces of paper in your bill.
Yes.
And then I would suggest some sort of form of QR to send it to those who want to do it online.
We basically have to have that sheet, 1 sheet ready. We can use both sides if you want. and it'll be tri-folded in the bill. So you have to think that of how you present or how you're looking at, people are looking at it because it's going to be tri-folded. Anything other than that will affect costs. I mean, it doesn't mean it can't, it's just.
I think this could be the primary mode, is definitely that July bill, but we can certainly utilize our Facebook, we can utilize, next year we can utilize the beautiful fire signs. Remember, fill the survey out, friends. I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later, Truth. I got ideas for you.
So for what it's worth, I was not aware of, you were on services, Ryan, you were aware of it. I don't know, Michael or Gary, this is kind of new to me, right? That this discussion has been ongoing. I could have been fine with it being a survey purely focused on parks as related to your update of the master plan. That would have been great. I also hear there's somewhat of a consensus to go broader than that. Or if you thought, well, we'd target parks with the summer tax bill and we'd target a wider audience on a wider issue of, issues next winter tax bill. I'm flexible personally with any of that, but if you're looking at a wider survey than just parks, I can go along with that, and our finance committee will do its part to submit some potential content to you at services and allow you guys to continue to run with the ball, I guess, as you have been. I wasn't maybe it's on top
How does the board feel about having a formal survey that would go out to all the constituents, but it would probably be tens of thousands of dollars?
Wouldn't be thousands, I don't think it'd be that much.
Well, that's the reason we chose this, is because it would be very inexpensive.
Yeah.
But this talk about we have to feel the heartbeat of our community, and I understand that. But are we willing to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000? Is it that important? Are we that out of touch that we should be spending that kind of money? Because if you want a survey that really has value, you hire a team to do it that is specially trained, and then you're going to spend a ton of money on mailings, and then there has to be you have to analyze those results. And then you could have something meaningful, but you're going to be talking serious, serious money. And I think most of us can pretty much tell what those results are going to be before we have to go through all that.
I think the difference between the 10 and 20 that you're talking about and the maybe 5 that this one would be is the tax bill. So first and foremost, I think it's a great starting point. It's a good pilot for us to see if this is going to work for us. It would allow for all of those in our community to provide feedback. And we could find a way to securely do that in a more nimble way, whether it be SurveyMonkey, et cetera, where they would validate, the address. And we may have to spend some time just making sure we go back and check and do things like that. The 10 to 20,000 typically, and you're right, it's you hire a consultant and they take a pool of people, and they analyze the pool of people. Based on the size of the community, and then there's they have like a control kind of pool. And that would, yes, give us a general pulse, because it should be appropriately weighted in demographic and age and things like that. But if the objective is to gain trust and engagement and feedback, you're going to get that more with a survey that is allowed by everybody to be filled out.
What if the summer survey in an economical fashion, as you guys have talked about, were to be strictly focused on parks and see how well it does, and leave the broader scope for one in the winter? And we usually do our goal setting in March. We'd have results at a time when we'd be looking at goals for the year of 2023.
I think that's putting the cart in front of the horse, which is typical. I mean, that's the long-standing tradition, is putting the cart in front of the horse. I love this, because the idea is, if the feedback from the community is like, oh, we're good with parks, we're good, then why would we do a survey? Why would we spend that time on that? I think we need that broader polling of what is it that our constituents want. And then also, you talk about goal setting. We got goal setting should be coming up within like the next month or so. So that's our 2022 goals. So, and this is a 2021 goal. So that's a last year's goal.
Yeah, I harken back to the fact that if we expand it and we broaden it, it's more inclusionary. It's going to allow for other things that other constituents care about beyond parks and recs. Number two, you know, I go back to, and this is, I'll own it, 100% subjective, okay? But if we go out with a survey in 22 that says, hey, what new parks do you want? How do you want us to spend money on a new park or whatever it is? How tone deaf is that of us to be like, how can we spend more money, but you're spending 58% more on gas and 7% more on milk and eggs and 23% more on utilities? I mean, I go back to what even Ottawa County commissioners are doing. They're like getting a better pulse on their community and making sure that we're not tone deaf. Again, I didn't build that into this because I think there's a lot, these 4 points drive a lot of unity. I think there's a lot of unity between those 4 points that I shared. That is my own little subjective nugget that I'll add to this evening of we go out with a survey and how we can spend more of your money when they are having a hard time with the inflation rates for 22. It just comes off tone deaf.
I just want to make a comment to that.
Yeah.
That's all great. People come to the podium and say, kudos, you guys did a really good job and you have money. But when you do that and you say, now you want to give it back, so because you did a good job of saving your money and now you have inflation because people did other things, who they voted for, that's called socialism.
Yeah.
You just took it away from those that did a good job and you want to give it to those who maybe not be doing such a good job because they voted for people they probably shouldn't have. And I'm just a little concerned, and I'll tell you where my concern is. I'm not against a survey. But surveys can lead to democracies and mob rule. We don't live under democracy. We live under a republic. We made the Pledge of Allegiance to the Republic. So we always have to be careful that we do what's right for the township and not always what's right for the mob rule. You know what I'm saying? The township is in great financial shape, not because I'm a trustee, but because they've done a good job through history. We've had great trustees, we've had good superintendents and supervisors in the past. They've done a good job of where we're at. But people say we should probably cut taxes. And I say, that's great, you can cut taxes, but I'll tell you what, if you cut taxes for $100, the public school will come in and say, hey, we'll take the $100 and we'll go do something with that. And you won't have that money when you do need it. So I'm just cautioning you and everybody else about the conversation you're having because that's exactly what it is. It's socialism. You did a great job. Now you got to help us out. And I'm just a little concerned about that conversation.
That's right.
That's my 2 cents worth.
If we're sharing concerns about the idea of a survey in general, my concern is that I don't wish to be, take this the right way, but bound by survey results, meaning somewhere between, oh, I know best, I'm the elected official, and, hey, public, tell me what to do. I'm somewhere in between. I want to know what some of the thoughts are out in the public, but I may see that the most active voices in a survey setting who will take the time to fill it out and send it in are a skewed perspective on what my gut tells me. My personal experience is really what the community either needs or is feeling. So I wouldn't want any survey that would go out to communicate the notion to the township residents that we will follow and set our goals according to what your survey results are, because I may find that some of those results I choose to ignore as being misleading. And I also don't want to see the questions, if there is going to be a survey, unnecessarily stir the pot on issues that would cause more angst and debate and festering that aren't currently festering. So I'd want to be careful that it was more, I don't want to say innocuous, but not looking to touch necessarily hot button issues and get people, let's get the 2 camps and see who's stronger. I hope that doesn't happen as we think about formulating this.
Jim, if I could, I agree with you. And this is going to be If we put it on the back of our tax rolls, this is to give us an indication of what people are thinking, in which direction, how they feel about things. Absolutely not scientific. And if we start attaching to that this is the people's will, we're not paying for a survey and having it done scientifically. And I agree with Gary. I don't believe we are a republic. It gives us an indication. But this was just something simple that would help us in our committee, that we are reaching out to the public and saying, on the back of your tat, will you send this back into us? Great. But let's not attach to this that this is the will of the people and they love the parks, we hope. But even if they say some negative things, well, it gives us an indication of some things we should be looking at. That's all.
Absolutely.
And this is not going to be that difficult. It's an easy thing to put together.
That's the reason why I think it's good that we start now, so we have time to review this thing before it goes out. I mean, if you can say, wait, I think now is the time to get started.
And we're working on it. We're working on it, and we're putting it.
I get it, but this gives us the board to know that it's coming up, and we can kind of work on this together. I think that's my opinion.
Productive end to the discussion for this meeting's purposes. How do we bring this to a productive end for this particular meeting? Is it I'm suggesting saying we as separate committees try to give some input to your committee by a certain date? Is it to go that way, or what do you wish?
That's fine.
Yep.
Is the outcome of that we will be able to compile a broader scope of questions then? Is that the result? So different committees can submit, here's what I think is going on in our committees, and oh, by the way, this, and then services will kind of coordinate the 10 questions from there, making sure that we hit on each one of the different committees. Is that your understanding too, Jim?
That's what I'm hearing. That's one thing I'm not hearing debate from all members of services about, is that there's a willingness to broaden. So if that's
fantastic.
If you're not just saying that and you're regretting later, or if that's the consensus.
I was never against broadening it.
Okay.
I am struggling tremendously with this characterization of the survey that services was working on, that we wanted to say we want to spend a bunch more money on a park. Where should we put it? Because that is tone deaf, but that was never the direction that services was headed in. Services needed to review the master plan, and because it's expired, and we needed to decide if we were revising our master plan so that we could in the future apply for grants, or just because we need a master plan that isn't expired. We are wrestling through those, and one of the steps of revising a master plan is to do a survey. The survey was never we want to build another park, or we have this budget that we want to spend, money burning a hole in our pocket, something that is very tone deaf in our current fiscal climate. And so the piece of this that I'm struggling with so much is kind of the way that the work that services was working on is being characterized now more publicly, or is being derailed. That said, have never been against it being more general. I thought that when I was bringing my 10 questions at the end of January that they were allowed to be more general. We had already kind of decided that it didn't have to be park specific. So this really changes nothing from my perspective, but I think that because this started in services, that if utilities and finance wanted to put some of their thoughts together and submit it to services, so that it could be part of an agenda packet prior to a services committee meeting, so that we have plenty of time to review it. If Kirsten could also submit her 4 points so that we have some time to read them in detail and chew on it. It seems like, so as to lessen the derailment of the train, it should go back to services to weed through, not in a negative way, not like we're going to throw stuff out, but to really try to strike a balance with a short, non-scientific survey that hits on what we need to know to continue the revision of our Parks Master Plan, because that is a board goal, but also to tap into some information from other topics that are part of living in a community. But I really appreciate, Jim, what you said about understanding that the feedback that we get does not have to then drive the train moving forward, but is food for thought, because because we need to make sure that we are continuing, to keep our own pulses on the community, and then the survey is another sort of pulse, but I just, what's going to happen. We're going to make this survey, and then there's going to be different interest groups that are saying to all of their people, fill it out, fill it out, fill it out, hoping that their interest group will be the loudest voice with the most responses. We know that will happen, because that's what happens if you don't do a scientific survey. And I just don't want this to be divisive. I want it to be informative. But I just want to make sure that we are correctly characterizing where this all started, and it wasn't services has money burning a hole in their pocket and wants to make another park. It was our parks master plan is expired and we need to revise it.
I'm so excited to hear you guys
put
say
this
that.
on the agenda? How did this?
So to begin, I brought it up as adding it to the agenda about a week ago.
Okay, was there a second?
No, anybody can
Anyone can
tell
add
Dan
it
to
the
put
agenda.
something on the agenda.
And I'm really excited, Becky, to hear your thoughts on this and that you're open to broadening the questions.
I said that in our last services committee meeting, that I was fine with it being nice and broad. I've never been against it being broad. I'm fine with that.
Awesome, guys.
As one who would have preferred to see it remain narrow, I will go along with the consensus of keeping it or making it more broad. And I think let's make the motion then to, prior to the one meeting in February that Parks will have, or Services Committee will have, that the other committees, Utilities and Finance, would submit their inputs to Services so that you'd have that for your consideration at that meeting. Is that a fine enough point?
We have a 124 services meeting. Is it possible or even attainable to get, no, okay, you really got a noodle on it. Okay, cool. So that's perfect. I think that's a good date. What was the February date?
What date do you meet?
It's the 2nd February then.
We meet
28th.
corresponding with the second board meeting of the month.
28th.
Yeah, so Feb 28th, we should have a really good idea, guys, on other questions that the other committees would have. And then is the idea that in services we would pull that together and then come back to you guys in the next board meeting to present. Here's what we think the 10 are. Here's a nice 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 kind of thing, potentially. Okay.
And maybe even a possibility 1 and possibility 2 or something if you wanted to throw a couple of options at us. But, all right.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Could that be then?
To the paper, it'd be more than 10 questions.
Does that?
It's hard. You got to keep. Okay.
Should we put that in the form of a motion? Because that's not the motion that was made, or is it in essence?
We got it.
Okay.
We got a motion.
All right. So we're considering the motion and second to be essentially what we just discussed right there. With that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And now, Dan, I turn to you here, as you had a couple of slides that you're going to share with us.
You can bring them up there. Quick, just obviously with things a little different this year, instead of a meeting I won't be here for State of the Township in April, I thought I'd show you a few slides now. And if you can see this is cemetery lot sales. We call it burial rights, but you can see obviously a sharp increase this year, or last year. It's significant, and we frequently have a bump when the price changes. This is, however, a little different. This is number of burials, and if you see the last 2 years, significant change in the number of burials. The cemetery has been very busy, both in the sales and burials, and of that last line, 32 are COVID. I know that's always a question, 30 COVID. So that isn't the only increase as far as the sales. But the cemetery is busy, and they're struggling to keep up, and that's why we made some changes with how we did the sales, turning them into the office. So it's a little bit of, you can tell are 15 plus years old and probably looking for some updates, at least battery-wise. You can go to the other slide. And I know the question came up about redistricting and new congressional maps. And we can see this on here. You know, there's been a lot of talk about if you can you slide the map over a little bit so we can see a little further east, Rod? I want to see toward the river. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Can you see this? Okay.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about dividing Ottawa County in congressional districts, and that was not a major concern, at least to me. I know others it was a big concern. But what is going to be a headache for the next 10 years is they divided Georgetown Township in congressional districts. And so you see this little area right here and this little area right here, two little spots. It's hard for me to fathom when one of the goals is municipal boundaries that they took out a few people, two little spots. I just don't understand when you're trying to follow municipal boundaries. They didn't follow precinct boundaries for us, which is even a little more of a headache to us. They did manage to follow Cottonwood,
but not the river.
But yeah, the river would have been nice. And then, you know, I'm struggling with this line to get to the river. So it's just hard for me to fathom. You know, I don't know if you know, we adopted a new development tonight.
Yeah.
Well, that's right here.
Can we split?
So they didn't follow street lines, municipal lines. They didn't follow river lines. So I'm not sure how they came up with that line. I have no idea. When the goals were very simple, follow municipal boundaries. And then this one here jumped here. I don't know why they couldn't just keep it, but I can't ask that question. I don't understand why we got it places. It's going to be a headache for election workers because they have to give people different ballots.
Right.
Okay, so now it isn't just, are you registered, here's your ballot. It's, are you registered, what street you live on, you get ballot A, you get ballot B. And I know that may seem simple, but when you're busy on a busy election day for the, you know, presidential year, and any deal with, you know, it's a mistake waiting to happen having a second ballot or a different ballot for residents. I'm not saying they will mistake, they'll work hard, it's just going to slow the process down to prevent those mistakes. So we'll have to look at changing precincts now, and if we do that, it's going to cost more money. And,
I was going to ask, is the district on the other side of Cottonwood to the river, can you change that and make that a different precinct so it's at least that ballot stays the same precinct to?
We can change lines. What map doesn't indicate, like this is Hudsonville schools, this is Jenison schools.
Right.
So we worked really hard developing with the county this year, county commission districts and school districts, following the school district lines to create the same thing with our precincts so that we wouldn't have two school districts in the same precinct.
Forgot about that.
Okay, so that was already an issue. At least in the school district situation for a May election, it's not heavily attended. And so it's not the worst case, but we've worked really hard to eliminate a problem that we've had for a while, and adding an extra precinct to adding this new problem where, yes, we can create more. The answer is we have to create more precincts with less people, which will cost more.
Right.
So essentially it'll cost $2,000 an election for each extra precinct, at a minimum.
To answer your question though, Gary, that is all precinct 2 on that side.
It is.
That's all precinct 2.
Okay.
So, but this causes another problem.
Yeah, that little jet out does. That's precinct 1.
But
That's
not
not
all
as populated
precinct
though,
one.
at least.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
not as
so-
populated. That, right?
I don't know how many people
A lot of
here.
development
If you
in there.
notice, if you look really carefully, they carefully carved out the apartments right here.
Well, thank
That is-
goodness.
That is not a street line.
That isn't.
And I just don't get it.
Yeah.
That isn't.
There can't be 100 people here. That can't have affected a congressional district. And to me, which, you know, 1 million people, right, in a congressional district, 900, I don't know what it is, 800,000 per congressional district, that 100 can't have been the deciding factor in drawing the line. And so.
Dan, I want to thank you for talking about this tonight because I know it was something that I mentioned to you, and I know you and I have had a couple conversations about this even earlier on when we thought that Georgetown was going to remain whole.
Right.
That was our hope and our wish, and it didn't pan out that way behind a closed door, which is, you know, neither here nor there. So next steps for us, so you mentioned there's going to be instances where one section is going to have two different ballots. Say there is a mistake, and I fill out ballot A and I should have filled out ballot B, it gets thrown out, right? Will there be some, like, what is the risk here?
We're going to work hard so that there's no mistakes. So your answer to your question is we're going to have to do additional work and staffing. So I'm not going to accept your premise that a mistake's going to happen. But is a mistake possible? Certainly. If a mistake happens, it won't be discovered. So
we have states like risk mitigation in case, you know, a mistake does happen. We'll be oh, will the thing reject it and say, oh, that's the wrong, whatever. We'll be able to catch it at that time that it was maybe a mistake, or are there things that we can do that will help risk mitigate for the next election?
Those things we're going to do that'll help prevent it from happening is the key.
Okay.
So the key is going to be separating the process for the people who come in there. It's going to have a person coming up front validating which ballot they're supposed to get first. It's going to be an extra step. So the first steps, we've dealt with it with school districts. We just worked hard to prevent it. So the first step's going to be, okay, you need ballot A versus ballot B. So when you go through the process, you normally swipe your driver's license and there's a process where you get your ballot. You don't really see the process. But now the step one is going to be which ballot you get. And then a second person is going to have to watch and make sure you get the right ballot.
Is this the 2024 election or 22? Sorry, I should probably know that.
Is it August?
Okay, August. It's real quick.
Yeah, unless the court does something different, but this is going to be the way it's going to be unless the court intervenes.
To answer your question, I mean, I'm looking at the map of that little area in the upper left there. It could be this little area where the solar panels are. I mean, there might be literally 4 people that live in that entire area.
Right.
There's 2 houses.
Which is why I can't figure out why they had to draw a line to cut out.
Probably a key corner for signage. Somebody who's lobbying had dibs on that corner for their signs.
Needed thousands of people to move, but when they needed 10 people to move, I don't get it. Or 50 people, it was. I mean, they have a computer program when they move the line, it tells them how many people they have, but that is a small number to draw a line in Georgetown. So we're going to have, for the Northern District, you're going to have part Hudsonville, part Jenison in the Northern District, which is just a headache. And yes, it's going to be an extra person at that precinct. Watch for it.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Dan, very much for speaking on this.
All right. We come to our second public comment period. Floor is open for anyone who wishes to step forward and address the board. All right. Seeing none. Oh, yep.
Bill McDonald, 40th Avenue in Jenison. This was entertaining. It's my first meeting. I'm almost a little bit offended by these guys over here who are talking about being out of touch. We see how many people are here. We're not attracting the constituents to these meetings to hear what's going on. That's a concern. It really is. And you had talked about...
You can address to the board, to the chair, please.
Yeah, so you talked about having these done in a couple of hours for this survey. I don't know if the survey is the right thing to do or not, but at least getting some questions out there is a really good idea. And being structured with these questions, also a good idea. You made that comment yourself. You don't want to have to rule by the mob. That's a really good idea. But right now, having it so focused is dangerous because it's going to sound like we're just going to focus on this one thing. And honestly, Ottawa County has a lot of parks. There's a lot of other things out here that need to be dealt with than just parks. And I think what should be seen is that that's very closed-minded, and we're not looking at that. And if this can be done in a couple hours, it should have been done last year. Why was this on last year's agenda and it's not done? Where's the accountability for that? I guess I don't know. I'll have to do a little more research, but it seems very concerning to me that if it's not getting done, it needs to get done. And I agree with you on getting the push to the date. Let's get the questions in from everybody. Let's let everybody get their say in it. But I think it's very important, also, like you said, not to give back money. I don't know that a refund is in addition, but I myself, due to, I'm going to say lack of, I don't even know what I want to say, but it's very poor tracking that my taxes have gone up almost 50% in the last 10 years. And a good part of that is because I wasn't properly informed that the buildings that had been there since 1970 were not on any of the drawings. Again, where's accountability? They just decide all of a sudden we're going to put these on there. I didn't build them. Should have been taxed that way for years. There needs to be some more accountability for some of this stuff. If there's things that need to get done, let's get them done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill, for joining us tonight. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll close the second public comment period. Item 16, discussion and general information from among the board. Any board members wish to share any general items with the board?
One question.
Yes.
In the superintendent search, will the I don't know if the wall is this one guy, is this Walsh, just one person, or is this a team of people? I don't know. But my question is he come and tour the township, or does anybody give him a tour of what he's selling? You know?
Yeah, he has toured it himself, and he's known it since he was young, but he's come through quite often. That doesn't make him the authority on what's going on currently.
No, I was just curious, because I don't know the process.
We're all learning the process.
Right, and I'm just thinking today, it's like, I wonder if he's been to the township, because, you know, we have a lot of neat things to sell, and that's what we're hiring him for, is to basically figure out who we need, and he's got to sell this to the right person, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just curious what he does, you know?
I've sat down with him at length. I know he's talked to Dan and Rod, he's talked to Michael, he's talked to Kirsten, and will listen to any of us. He's received all of our surveys, and he should continue. And I think part of his next phase of things is to include the board in a larger discussion together. Yeah, we're all learning that, Gary. We got to keep.
Just a thought I had today. I was like, I wonder if he's been to the township, or I don't.
Yeah.
Good.
Jim, do you have an idea of, or a date in mind where he could come and kind of give us a little bit of an update on his search or any of that?
I'll ask him. I know he wants to meet with the board sometime soon. I don't know if he told you a date, but I think it's, I want to say it's going to be certainly within the next month. It has to be, and sooner, you know, probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So let me reach out to him, and then I'll let all of you know, since I've had some ongoing contact with him. Good. Yeah, he's getting he knows of us, he's getting the better flavor for us, you know. I think he is getting a good beat on what it is we're looking for. Gotta hope that there are candidates who want that. They should. Great opportunity. It's a great township. Great, it's just a great chance for somebody.
Great.
Just worst case scenario, we can go back to a full-time board.
Worst case scenario,
quit your job.
Make them both stay for.
Or Dan doesn't retire for another 30 years.
Oh. How long ago was it? Did you start as superintendent? 8 years ago?
13.
13 years ago?
Wow.
I cannot believe.
Time flies.
When you're having fun.
Jim, if I could mention, February 12th, the library is going to have a fundraiser, helping veterans. And it's a chili cook-off where they're looking at 12 teams. It's $25 to enter and $5 to the tasting. And it's from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. We did something like this at Granville and raised quite a bit of money. People like this type of thing. And it just seems very positive. You know, this time of year when it's cold, to have something like that happening, and it just seems Rob's taking it to the next level over there with making it a community center.
I like that. Are they lacking people to submit chili, or are they just looking for eaters? Because I think
you could be one. But I think they just announced it. I just happened to pick it up on Facebook.
Okay. I'll be an eater. Thanks for bringing that up. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Move and support. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And it's adjourned.